Marvel's new god, the man who outsmarted the Avengers. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 76. The power of the Infinity Gauntlet is undeniable. And now, the Infinity Gauntlet appeared in front of him, and it could even fall into his hands at any time. Not to mention the other two top-notch treasures next to them. But it's actually not nice to say. The three treasures that Odin took out, Lin Fan was actually not moved. The Infinity Gauntlet is powerful, but it is only a carrier, and the real power is actually the Infinity Stones. Even if he gets the Infinity Gauntlet, his promotion is dispensable. As for the other two treasures, they are still somewhat useful. Eternal Flame. Ice Treasure Box. There are two kinds of divine things, one ice and one fire, and all of them have extremely powerful power. The Eternal Flame claims to be a flame that never goes out. The Ice Treasure Box can freeze space. Compared to the Infinity Gauntlet, Lin Fan wanted these two treasures more, and it helped him more. The former can be refined and integrated into the power of the Phoenix and strengthened the origin of the fire. The latter is an artifact with great power. Of course, children make choices, adults, of course, all of them. If you can get the Infinity Gauntlet, it is naturally excellent, after all, don't be in vain. And he is also trying to plot the Infinity Stones. With the advantage of prophetic foresight, if you can get the Infinity Stones, you can exert greater power with the help of the Infinity Gauntlet. And if you can. Wasn't the reality gem sealed by Odin? Secretly groaning in his heart, Lin Fan remained silent on the surface, and waved his hand indifferently. The Odin God King is polite. As the so-called reactive power is not reckless, these things are impossible for me to accept. Don't, Lin, you can't refuse. Seeing that Lin Fan still had to resign, Odin hurriedly said. Brothers Thor and Loki, it's a roommate, and a serious point is about Asgard's future. As long as Xiao Yu is willing to help, these things are being offered with both hands. Saying that, Odin directly pushed the three treasures in front of Lin Fan. Even he said very sharply. Of course, even if Xiao Yu refuses, there will be no complaints in the next, and this should be a meeting gift for Xiao Yu. Hearing this, the corners of Lin Fan's mouth raised slightly. This old guy is really good at being a man. First say that this is all a transaction, and then say that it is a meeting gift. How can others be embarrassed to refuse? It's impossible for someone to take 20 places and not do anything, right? To be honest, Lin Fan really wanted to see how Odin and the ancient mage would react if they only took the benefits and did nothing. Of course, he just thinks about it. How to say that he is also a decent person now, and he will not take advantage of others. In that case, then I will accept it. Saying indifferently, Lin Fan casually put away the three items. He didn't look embarrassed in the slightest. After all, Odin himself said that as long as he was willing to help, these things were a reward for him. It's good that Xiao Yu is satisfied. Odin was undistressed and smiled. The ancient mage also watched silently. Seeing that Odin befriended Lin Fan and Lin Fan got benefits, she naturally felt very satisfied. A win-win situation is exactly what she wants to see. She knew very well that Lin Fan was the only variable in the river of time. Befriending Lin Fan was exactly what she wanted. Asgard will encounter great disasters in the future, and Odin is now good friends with Lin Fan, and he may be able to seize that 1 in 10 million turnaround. Why didn't she, including herself, have this idea? Then Soul's affairs will be entrusted to Xiao Yu. The deal was struck, and Odin breathed a sigh of relief. If Lin Fan made a move, then this matter should be properly resolved, and he had to hurry back to talk to Loki in person. It's best to make it clear with Loki, otherwise the misunderstanding will become deeper and deeper. I just hope that Loki's kid doesn't hate him all the time. God King, rest assured. Lin Fan nodded, but did not guarantee anything. Odin didn't push too much either. The three of them briefly exchanged pleasantries again, then very tacitly took their leave, and left one after another. Odin directly summons the Rainbow Bridge and disappears into Carmitage. Looking at the colorful light between heaven and earth, Lin Fan's eyes flashed, and a cold mechanical sound sounded in his ears. Ding! The host witnessed the Rainbow Bridge teleportation, and felt it in his heart, and burst out against the sky. Ding! Congratulations to the host for creating a new ability, Any Door. Any Door? Does this also count as competence? Hearing the system prompt, Lin Fan was secretly surprised. Having rewards is naturally excellent. But the new ability turned out to be an arbitrary door. Isn't this a magical prop in cartoons? Lin Fan suddenly scratched his head. But he did not show it, but bowed at the ancient mage. Today's transaction, I have finally gained a lot of benefits. Thank you, Master, for facilitating this, but I can trust me in the future. Ha, Mr. Lin is polite. The ancient mage smiled and was non-committal. She didn't have any intentions, it was enough to hear Lin Fan's words. Moreover, Lin Fan could be regarded as having helped her solve a trouble. She also had to concentrate on dealing with the invasion of the other dimension, but she didn't have time to take care of other people's household affairs. Then I'll leave first. Lin Fan nodded and also offered his leave. As soon as his mind moved, he directly summoned any door, which can also be regarded as the effect of testing the new ability. Suddenly, a portal appeared out of thin air in front of him. The familiar portal made Lin Fan think that he was on the wrong set for a while, and the ancient mage on the side was even more secretly surprised. This is? Ancient mage was slightly shocked. If she was not mistaken, could this be the portal summoned by Lin Fan? But the teleportation technique on the Book of Emperor Vishan is not like this. So is this Lin Fan's own ability, or is it a new technique that has been improved on the basis of the Book of Emperor Vishan? Watching Lin Fan open the door and walk inside, the ancient mage fell into deep thought. Lin Fan's son has the posture of a supreme mage. While thinking about it in his heart, Master Gui looked at Lin Fan's back and said meaningfully, "Mr. Lin, this place may have what you want." Lin Fan, who had just walked into any door, paused in his steps. Feeling the extra coordinates in his mind, as well as some information, his eyes flashed with surprise. "Thank you, mage." With a chuckle, Lin Fan left without looking back. But in his heart, he made a note of this human favor. The ownership of an Infinity Stone, if he can get it, his promotion is absolutely undoubted. Meanwhile, far away in Africa. "Lin Fan, you're finally here." Seeing Lin Fan, Tony was overjoyed. At this point, he was relieved. Although the Red Queen spoke nicely, and even did control the fighter, he always felt unsteady. Now seeing Lin Fan's arrival, his heart finally let go. Roar! Hulk also shouted at Lin Fan excitedly. Lin Fan is his best friend. If it weren't for Lin Fan, he would only have been sleeping deeply, and maybe he would be wiped out by Banner one day. So in his heart, Lin Fan was definitely the most important existence. "Tony, Hulk, are you alright?" Lin Fan looked at the two with a smile and asked. "It's okay." As the nanometal flowed, the Tony Warframe helmet dissipated. He waved his hand very hard and said, "A nobody, which is the opponent of me and the Hulk, we can solve it even if you don't come." Damn it! Chala, who heard this, looked ugly. Originally, the situation was unfavorable to him, and now there was another Lin Fan. This person looks like an even more powerful guy. Isn't he dead today? His mood became more and more solemn, so that he heard Tony's taunt, and he did not have a thought of returning. "Oh, yes?" Glancing at Chala, whose face was darkened, Lin Fan was unimpressed. He saw this guy's arrogance before. For this kind of guy with high self-esteem, he has never had a good face. This kind of person is a lack of social beatings. Do you really think that Wakanda has vibranium and is invincible in the world? Tony alone can compare himself to the gods. Wakanda occupies the right time on Earth, and as a result, it has developed for hundreds of years, and it is not as good as Tony alone. Are you so arrogant to say? Ignoring Chala, Lin Fan looked at Tony with a smile and said, "Since you can solve it, then I will go?" Don't! Tony was immediately anxious when he heard this. Although the current situation is reversed, with Lin Fan present, he is naturally more at ease. He was curious about the method by which Lin Fan appeared. And about the origin of Chala, he also wanted to ask Lin Fan clearly. "If you leave, we're dead." Seeing Lin Fan's playful gaze, Tony didn't dare to speak hard. He pointed at Chala and repeated the matter. Speaking of Chala's aggressiveness, Tony couldn't get angry. Isn't this bullying honest people? Read violent novels, just go to Feilu Fiction Network. You have to grab the loot we worked so hard to fight, and you have to take Ulysses Crow. Really, Tony Stark has no temper, right? Even without Lin Fan, it was impossible for him to compromise with Chala. Not to mention that there was Lin Fan as a backer at this time. Now that the situation has reversed, Tony suddenly sneered. Some people think highly of themselves and do not put others in their eyes, but they do not know that there is a sky outside the sky and there are people outside the people. Lin Fan, what do you say this guy should do with it? Tony turned to look at Lin Fan and asked. If he could, of course he would like to teach Chala a hard lesson, but not his life. After all, the two sides have not yet made trouble to the point of immortality. And he is also very jealous of the other party's background. But at this time, Lin Fan was there, guessing that Lin Fan knew Chala's background, and Tony simply handed the decision to Lin Fan. Whether Lin Fan hit or kill, or let the other party go, he unconditionally supported. Well, I see. Lin Fan nodded indifferently, and looked down at Chala with indifferent eyes. Previously, through the report of the Red Queen, he already knew the reason and knew very well how arrogant this guy from Chala was. He didn't care what Chala's strength was. In the face of the absolute strength gap, there is nothing to be afraid of. But what should he do with the other side? killing is obviously impossible. Not to mention that Chala is the future Black Panther, killing will affect the plot and trigger some unknown butterfly effect. It is estimated that the ancient mage alone will not let him kill people casually. Not to mention that he just owed people's favors. Due to many factors, Lin Fan quickly made a decision in his heart, but on the surface, he was silent. Ha! He looked at Chala coldly and said, Chala, you Wakanda are so majestic. Do you really think that vibranium technology is invincible? Chala's body shook violently when she heard this. He looked at Lin Fan with wide eyes. To know about the existence of Wakanda, very little is known in this world, that is, that Ulysses Crow not far away. But listening to Lin Fan's meaning at this time, it seemed that he was very clear about the details of Wakanda. Even the other party said that Wakanda's vibranium technology was broken. For a while, his already solemn mood became heavier at this moment, and he looked at Lin Fan and said in a deep voice, Who is your excellency? We should have no grudges, right? Not before. Lin Fan spoke indifferently and joked. But later, that's not certain, and... Saying that, Lin Fan smiled playfully. He pointed to Tony and Hulk on the side, and said meaningfully, I'm the most righteous person, Tony and Hulk are my friends, you almost killed them, what do you say I should do with you? Abominable. Chala's heart sank, and she gritted her teeth fiercely. Lin Fan, this guy is too arrogant. Although he did fall into the downside, did he really think that this would be able to control him? Wakanda will never be a slave, the big deal is that the fish is dead and the net is broken. Your Excellency, you are too deceitful. Chala tried to suppress the anger in her heart. Ha! Lin Fan immediately smiled when he heard this. Too much deception? Now you know that it is too much to deceive, but what about before? Tony even sneered and mocked. We just gave an eye for an eye, and if I'm not mistaken, someone was very domineering before. Roar! Hulk beat his chest angrily, already impatient to move. This guy caused him to shed a lot of blood. Although it was not painful or itchy, there was nowhere to vent the anger in his heart, but it made him uncomfortable to die. Chala was completely 187 unspeakable. Facing the cold eyes of the three, he knew that he was powerless to argue, because it was true. In his personal opinion, he did all this to preserve Wakanda. But for Tony and the two, it was too much of a lie. If he can always have the upper hand, then the loser eats dust and says anything wrong. But feng shui takes turns. Now the right to speak is in the hands of others, and he can only be slaughtered by others. Of course, I'm not that cold-blooded person. Seeing that Chala wanted to give up resistance, the corners of Lin Fan's mouth raised slightly. But you hurt my friends, and I have to get justice for them, so if you get the price, the previous grudge can be written off. Hearing this, Tony was suddenly dumbfounded. Boy! I call the good guys. I owe you as a friend, almost moved directly to cry. As a result, you backhand the poor dagger, right? After all, it was a mistake. Wide-eyed Lin Fan, Tony's face turned dark, but he didn't say anything more. He knew that Lin Fan must have considered when he said this. Let's wait for Lin Fan to settle the account later. What do you want? Chala was also relieved at this time. Seeing that there were still talks, although he wanted to be tougher, he still chose to reconcile. Of course, it also depends on what conditions Lin Fan proposed. If it was excessive, then he would rather have blood splattered on the spot than disgrace Wakanda. It's simple. Lin Fan's eyes flashed slightly, and said indifferently. Prince Wakanda's little life should be worth some money, right? I don't want much, 10 tons of vibranium will do. What? No way. Chala suddenly exclaimed, her face full of anger. Even Tony was dumbfounded. Prince of Wakanda? 10 tons of vibranium? Combined with all the previous things, a bold guess came to his mind. Could it be that Chala came from the Wakanda he knew? But Wakanda is a poor small country, not enough to eat, clothing and warm, how can it have vibranium veins? Not to mention that the opening is 10 tons of vibranium. I really thought that vibranium fell from the sky and could be dug casually. Your Excellency, give up. Meeting Lin Fan's oppressive gaze, Chala gritted her teeth and said. Don't say 10 tons of vibranium, even if it's just 1 ton of vibranium, Wakanda will definitely not agree to such an unreasonable request. Oh yes? Lin Fan smiled meaningfully. Ignoring the determination in Chala's eyes, he looked at the fighter in the distance and said indifferently. Your son said he wouldn't agree, so what about your attitude? What? As soon as these words came out, everyone turned their heads in unison. Immediately afterwards Chaka exclaimed. Father? How do you? Looking at the figure projected by the fighter, Chala was full of shame. He disgraced Wakanda. Kid, don't feel guilty, you've done a great job. The old panther smiled at Chala. Immediately, he looked at Lin Fan, his eyes full of solemnity and jealousy, and said in a deep voice, Your Excellency's request, I agree. Episode 77. Father must not. Hearing that his father agreed to Lin Fan's rude request, Chala was suddenly anxious. 10 tons of vibranium is a drop in the bucket for Wakanda. But that's the property that belongs to Wakanda. The gold content of 10 tons of vibranium is even enough to trigger international conflicts. How can people give it away for nothing? Most importantly, it's all because of the consequences he caused. He will never allow himself to incur great losses. Although Lin Fan's strength is very strong, Wakanda will never be a slave, and he will fight to the death if it is a big deal. Enough, Chala. Without waiting for Chala to say anything, the old panther directly scolded. He looked at Chala with a cold face and said in a deep voice, I'm glad you can give everything for Wakanda, but as the Prince of Wakanda, blood alone is not enough. Based on your previous performance alone, I am actually very disappointed in you. The old panther said and sighed. His family knows his own affairs, and he knows the strengths and weaknesses of Chala's character. But that's also Chala's problem. It is clear that when dealing with Tony Stark before, Chala can choose to compromise, just bring back Ulysses Crow. But Chala pours well. When he knew Tony Stark's identity, he had to offend people to the end. So much so that it triggered a series of subsequent changes. Now facing the more powerful Lin Fan, they can be regarded as kicking to the iron plate, and they don't even have room for negotiation. Lin Fan's strength and mystery far exceeded their imagination. They even have to be prepared for whether they will provoke an enemy that they shouldn't mess with. Father, Chala was anxious to defend herself. But as soon as the words came out, he didn't know what to say. Because he really provoked it. Now that feng shui was turning, they could only agree to Lin Fan's request without wanting Wakanda to be angered. Gentlemen, please forgive Chala's recklessness. The old Black Panther looked at Lin Fan and the three sincerely, and said with an apologetic expression. The reason for this is completely caused by Chala being too paranoid, and I apologize to you for his previous recklessness. And I hope you can forgive Chala for his offense. Including Mr. Lin, the conditions you put forward, Wakanda agreed unconditionally. I'll have someone prepare 10 tons of vibranium right away. If Mr. Lin needs it, he can come to Wakanda to pick it up at any time, and of course we can also deliver it to your door. The old panther was very sincere. Even worried that Lin Fan would misunderstand, he added. Because vibranium mining is very troublesome and takes time, if Mr. Lin is not at ease, he can let Chala accompany you gentlemen to leave. He said this very tactfully. But everyone is a smart person, they can hear the meaning of the words, isn't it just a hostage? This is not necessary. Lin Fan smiled indifferently at this, and waved his hand disapprovingly. I believe in your credibility, King Chaka, but I believe even more that no one dares to deceive me. Unless he wants to pay a greater price. Hearing this, the old panther's heart was awe-inspiring. At this point, he is just a projection. But from a distance of tens of thousands of meters, he could still feel the indifference in Lin Fan's words. It was as if everything in the world was nothing more than Earl in his eyes. The old Black Panther did not slow down to doubt Lin Fan's words. Once he really dares to disobey, I am afraid that what awaits Wakanda will be an unprecedented terrible disaster. Mr. Lin, rest assured, Wakanda has always kept its promises. The old panther hurriedly assured and said. Lin Fan was non-committal about this. He directly ignored the ugly Chala and said to Tony. Let's go back first. Buzz. Saying that, Lin Fan summoned any door again. With a wave of his hand, 2 boxes of vibranium in the distance floated out of thin air, following him into any door. Tony was shocked and followed behind. The Hulk looked at his massive body. Roar! With 2 shouts of dissatisfaction, he returned control of his body to Banner. Banner, who was naked again, was still a little confused. But feeling the coldness on his body, his old face turned red into a monkey's butt, and he quickly ran into any door with his key points. Soon, the door closed, and Lin Fan and the 3 had already disappeared. Only Chala's face was left in confusion. What have I done? He sat down on the ground, and the guilt in his heart came like a tide. At this moment, he very much regretted his previous recklessness. As his father said, if this matter is properly handled, they will not only reap Tony Stark's friendship, but they will even be able to capture the sinners who killed the people of Wakanda. But now the result is that Wakanda has lost a full 10 tons of vibranium. And also offended an enemy with unfathomable strength. This loss is not serious. Chala, this is the price of growth. Becoming a new king is not as simple as you think. At this moment, the majestic voice of the old panther sounded. He didn't comfort Chala too much. As the Prince of Wakanda, these things need to be understood by the other party himself. If Chala had been brought down so easily, then he doesn't deserve to be the new king either. The old panther looked at Oki, who came out of the fighter, and said in an icy tone, "Bring that bastard back. I will judge this damned fellow in front of all the people." "Yes, king." Oki took the order and walked quickly to Ulysses Crow. By this time he had fainted due to excessive blood loss. Looking at this bastard coldly, Oki picked it up, turned around and walked towards the fighter. And when passing by Chala, she said with a complicated expression, "Prince Chala, if you are defeated like this, then I can only say that Nagia leaving you is actually a very wise choice." Nagia? Hearing this familiar and unfamiliar name, Chala's body shook. But then he jerked up from the ground. Forced to endure the guilt in his heart, he looked at the old panther figure that slowly dissipated, and swore in his heart, "Don't worry, father, I won't let you down." Meanwhile, the other side. Inside Stark Manor. Watching Banner run back with his key points covered and run back to the room in a hurry, Lin Fan and Tony couldn't help it. But then Tony's face turned pale and he looked at Lin Fan with an inspecting gaze. The expression on his face carried some indescribable meaning. "What are you doing with me?" Casually putting the vibranium aside, Lin Fan asked indifferently. Tony didn't say anything when he heard this. He still looked at Lin Fan, as if he had just met this guy, and only after a long time shook his head and said, "I really didn't see it, Lin Fan. It turns out that you were so powerful." Tony said this with a slightly sour tone. But it's normal to think about it. Tony Stark, who was envied by countless people, was once a billionaire, a playboy, and a genius inventor. Every title is said, I don't know how many people will be so jealous that they go crazy. But even Tony Stark himself had to admit. Compared to Lin Fan, his past and even current brilliant achievements were nothing at all. Even now, his understanding of Lin Fan was very one-sided. He still didn't know where Lin Fan's limit was. Aha! Meeting Tony's gaze, Lin Fan nodded. He said in a very beaten tone, "I'm really good, no matter where it's convenient, but not that powerful." Tony, who heard this, was suddenly speechless. "Praise you twice, you are still proud. And don't you hear that I'm not praising you, I'm nodding at you. Obviously so powerful, but hide from his brother, pretend to be a pig and eat a tiger? Humph, I'm too lazy to pay attention to you." Rolling his eyes, Tony sat down on the couch to himself. The armor on his body has long been disarmed on its own. The nano armor is convenient, even simpler than wearing clothes, and this is thanks to Lin Fan. At the thought of this, Tony was immediately deflated. People are really angry with people than people? Okay, no kidding. Sighing secretly, Tony looked at Lin Fan seriously. "What's going on with Wacken at the end?" "You said that." Lin Fan didn't care, and said indifferently. "Simply put, it is a meteorite that fell from the sky a long time ago, and then derived a vibranium vein in Wakanda. Wakanda has once again developed a unique vibranium technology. That is, 20 or 30 years ahead of the current world. But in my opinion, vibranium technology is nothing more, it's not as good as you." Speaking of Wakanda, Lin Fan seemed very disgusted. And that's exactly what happened. Relying on vibranium to develop for so many years, the result is 20 or 30 years ahead of the outside world, and even engaged in the policy of Jinya Zhangjiao. In this regard, Lin Fan could only say that it was not for nothing to look down on Wakanda. Because if it's for Tony to study, read violent novels, just go to Feilu Fiction Network. I believe that with Tony alone, in just 10 years, he can far surpass the power of Wakanda. So you're praising me? Hearing what Lin Fan said, Tony rolled his eyes angrily. This guy has a hand in yin and yang weirdness. People say that he is Tony Stark Viper, but compared to Lin Fan, he is really ashamed of himself. How else? The corner of Lin Fan's mouth raised a hint of teasing. To make Tony deflated, he is not only not guilty, but happy. It's a kind of fun during boring time. You bastard. Tony gritted his teeth and picked up the cup on the table and smashed it at Lin Fan. But the cup was suspended in front of Lin Fan out of thin air. Under the control of an invisible magnetic field, the cup fell to the table as if nothing had happened. Tony was completely deflated when he saw this. In terms of poisonous tongue, he was ashamed of himself, and in terms of superpowers, he was defeated, so he could only smash Lin Fan with money. But the point is that Lin Fan is now also a shareholder in Stark Industries. Every penny he made had to be distributed to Lin Fan. Once nanotechnology is promoted, the benefits it can produce are unimaginable, and it will definitely make a lot of money when the time comes. Lin Fan didn't have to do anything to instantly become a billionaire. When he thought about it like this, he felt that his people were numb. Lin Fan really doesn't have any weaknesses? In the end, he became a part-time job for Lin Fan, and he had to say thank you to people. Tread. At this moment, Banner, who had changed his clothes, walked back awkwardly. He achieved a position far away from both of Lin Fan. But in order to avoid embarrassment, he quickly found a topic and said, "Is Wakanda so powerful? 10 tons of vibranium will give it. What a huge amount of storage that must be. What a tyrannical thing." Tony also sighed at this time. He very much agreed with what Lin Fan said. After so many years of development, the result of vibranium technology is amazing at first glance, but careful thinking is nothing more. If you give him time and vibranium, he can definitely develop something stronger. Therefore, it is no exaggeration to say that the last sentence is violent to the heavens. What about that? I don't know what I thought. Tony looked at Lin Fan with a scornful expression. He twisted for a long time before saying, "Lin Fan, you see that you have 10 tons of vibranium, anyway, you can't use it up yourself, how about selling me a little? I bought it at 3 times the market price." Speaking of tripling the acquisition, Tony finally regained his confidence. Not bad money is to be able to speak for whatever you want. Banner on the side listened. It was called an envious and jealous rich man really meow-trench in humanity. Yes. Lin Fan nodded indifferently and said, "My vibranium, originally casually blackmailed, I didn't expect the old panther to agree. If you have a good use, you can use it. But I need you to help me build a pair of armor. The model drawings are completed by myself, you just need to help me build it." In the face of Tony's request, Lin Fan did not refuse. But he also made his own demands. Vibranium is certainly very precious, but in his opinion, it is actually nothing more. There are more metals in the world that are more powerful than vibranium. Take Ulu metal in Asgard. So for the 10 tons of vibranium that was extorted, he didn't bother to deal with it, and Tony would give it to him if he needed it. If you don't give some benefits, how can you use other people's labor in vain in the future? No one knows better than he the value Tony can create. Build an infinite warframe. Hand rub the time machine. If this can be developed, it can definitely play a huge value. What is 10 tons of vibranium? Thank you so much. Tony, who didn't know that he was being treated as a toolman, looked at Lin Fan with a grateful face. He didn't expect the surprise to come so suddenly. You know, that's a full 10 tons of vibranium. If this is brought to the market, it will definitely trigger a major earthquake in the whole world, and countless countries and even major forces will compete for it. But when he arrived at Lin Fan, he turned out to be garbage that was given away casually. It can only be said that people in people's realms are not the same. But no matter what, he can use 10 tons of vibranium for nothing, and he feels that he can't lose money. It just so happened that Lin Fan thought the same way. As for who gains and who loses, it can only be said that they understand everything. Banner on the side looked stupid. Listening to the conversation between the two, he easily decided on the right to use 10 tons of vibranium, and he was called an envy in his heart. As a top scientist, he also wants to study vibranium. Banner, you can use it if you need it. Sensing Banner's expression, Lin Fan smiled and gestured. Anyway, there is enough vibranium, you can use it casually. If it is not enough, then find Wakanda to grab it. Ah no, it's fair trade. You just meant to say guns, right? Tony looked at Lin Fan strangely, but didn't say anything more. He only observed a 3-second silence in his heart for Wakanda. To provoke such a person who is not afraid of heaven and earth, the key is extraordinary strength. Can only say that Chala, you really deserve it. Thank you, Lin Shang. Banner looked at Lin Fan with a look of surprise. Compared to Tony, he and Lin Fan did not have much friendship, and never dared to ask for too much. But I didn't expect people to sit at home and rejoice from heaven. The gold content of vibranium is naturally self-evident. Being able to get Lin Fan's promise, Banner felt pleasantly surprised, and his heart became more and more reverent for Lin Fan. Mr. Lin is such a good man. Ha! Lin Fan smiled and was unimpressed. With something you can't use, exchange it for Tony in Banner's favor, and make money in blood. Speaking of which, Banner should have been involved in the Super Soldier program before, right? It is because of the study of human body enhancement that the body is infected by gamma rays, and the Hulk, the second soul, is added to the body. So Banner was able to help study the Keel. Banner, your research with Tony, you shouldn't need you next, right? Thinking of this, Lin Fan looked directly at Banner and asked. Interested in doing me a favor? Mr. Lin, please say. Banner nodded apprehensively. Tony on the side was also very curious, not knowing what the research in Lin Fan's mouth would be. Yikes. Lin Fan waved his hand to summon a dragon bone and said indifferently. This thing is a keel, which can make people immortal, and even resurrected from the dead. Episode 78. Keel? Dead? Hearing what Lin Fan said, Tony and Banner's eyes widened. They just thought they had misheard. You must know that people cannot be resurrected after death, let alone resurrected from the dead, or even immortal. Although magic does exist in this world, it is also too mysterious, right? This can no longer be explained by so-called magic. If people can live forever, I'm afraid Newton's coffin board can't be suppressed. Tony immediately shook his head and vetoed. Lin Fan, you won't be deceived. How can people live forever? If you say to extend your lifespan, I can still believe it. It's the same. Banner on the side nodded weakly. Although I really want to believe Lin Fan, the effect of this keel is too outrageous, right? It was immortality, the deepest desire in the hearts of countless people. But who can make that dream come true? Not to mention relying on a bone to realize the dream of immortality, you must know that human genes are very mysterious. If it were that simple. I am afraid that those scientists of the past 100 years will cry in the coffin board. It's weird, but it's even true. Meeting the questioning gazes of the two, Lin Fan looked indifferent. Of course he knew it was unbelievable. But facts are facts, and if Tony and Banner don't question a word or two, the keel effect will cease to exist. Moreover, even without a keel, there are countless immortals in the universe. For example, Thanos of the Titans, the Asgard Protoss. Even on Earth, aren't there mutants who can live for thousands of years, such as the Apocalypse? Immortality sounds like a fantasy, but it's not out of reach. Even he himself is now an immortal. With a silver super bloodline, unless he is obliterated by a more powerful existence, he can also live forever, and even resurrect after death. For Tony's questioning, Lin Fan said indifferently. Immortality is not unattainable, whether in the universe or on the Earth, there are many immortal humans. It's just that with your realm, you can't touch them yet. But in a few days, you should be able to meet an immortal guy who has lived for at least thousands of years. Lin Fan said, and couldn't help but think of Odin. The Asgardian Protoss are immortals. Even the thunder god with average strength has lived for thousands of years, which shows that this race has a long lifespan. Now that Mjolnir has descended on Earth, Thor is not far away. Maybe Tony can meet you then. Oh my god. 247 this? Hearing what Lin Fan said, Banner was suddenly shocked. Do immortals really exist on Earth? Originally, he did not believe it. But seeing Lin Fan swearing so much, coupled with the ancient mage he had seen before, he couldn't help but believe a little. And he couldn't help but be curious, who would be the immortal seed that Lin Fan was talking about? Could it be that some hermit on Earth is not a master? Really fake? Tony, by contrast, was much more cautious. He looked at Lin Fan suspiciously. Immortals on Earth? Wouldn't it be made up to deceive? And thousands of years are too outrageous. Tony put on a look like I don't believe unless you prove it to me. This can also be seen that he is actually very curious in his heart. That's an immortal species that has lived for thousands of years. If this is true, then don't these human beings who have not lived more than 100 years also have hope of prolonging their lives? Tony doesn't think he's too ambitious, but it's naturally great to live a few more years. Believe it or not. Lin Fan was too lazy to explain, anyway, he would know by then. He pointed to the keel on the table and said indifferently. The keel is placed here, whether it is true or not, you can study it to know. And my request is also very simple, there is only one. Saying that, Lin Fan raised a finger. He looked straight at Banner and said in a deep voice. I can provide you with a steady stream of keels, including research materials on keels. But I hope that Banner can build on this and develop an elixir that can prolong life and even revive people. As long as the experiment is successful, you can all get access to it at that time. Lin Fan didn't mind sharing it with Banner and the others. As long as the experiment can be successful, then he is equivalent to a layer of guarantee, at least he does not have to worry about dying and burping directly. Moreover, he may also be alone in the future, and the elixir is very necessary. Most importantly, he didn't have to do anything the time. Just provide some keels and you'll be able to sit back. Why not? Phew. Taking a deep breath, Banner admitted that he was moved. That's the legendary elixir. If he can really study it, then won't he also be able to become an immortal species and live him for thousands of years? And his girlfriend Betty, the two of them can fly both to the end. For a while, Banner nodded without hesitation and said, Mr. Lin, please rest assured, as long as the keel does have the effect you said, I will do my best and fulfill Mr. Lin's instructions no matter what. If you are willing to help. Lin Fan nodded in satisfaction, and his gaze towards Banner became more and more gratified. In vain, he personally intervened to save the other party. Now that Banner is so aware of current affairs, he has also saved a lot of nonsense, and it seems that the training of tool people is very successful. Not like someone. Glancing at Tony, who is still tangled, the corners of Lin Fan's mouth raised slightly. This guy is really a dead duck with a hard mouth. It is clear that they have already been moved, but they are still stubborn for the sake of so-called face. He wanted to see how long Tony could hold out. Lin Fan, this guy. Feeling Lin Fan's teasing, Tony's face darkened. He felt like he was being pinched again. Although he didn't want to admit it, if he could, he also wanted the elixir to be good. There are still so many girls in the world waiting for him to come to luck. But his body is indeed worse day by day, and he is really unable to do so. Ahem, what about that? Afraid that Lin Fan would not bring himself, Tony coughed lightly and said. Although Banner has participated in genetic research, I also know a little about this, so I will help you with mercy. Thank you for that, but you don't have to. Lin Fan smiled and was directly ready to refuse. Seeing this, Tony was anxious. Seeing that he was about to be isolated, he quickly stopped pretending and directly shouted. No, no, no. This experiment can't be done without me, I have to participate, so happy decision. Ha! Lin Fan rolled his eyes, not bothering to pay attention to Tony. This guy is a dead tsundere. The more you let him do something, he will beat you to death and not do it, which can make you angry half to death. But that's also Tony's weakness. Lin Fan only pinched it a little, and Tony took the initiative to come up to help, and even he had to thank Lin Fan in turn. It can only be said that some people, the easier it is to get, do not know how to cherish it. At the same time, thousands of miles away, a meteor roared in the sky, wrapped in monstrous fire, faintly flashing wisps of thunder and lightning. Under the detection of many satellite equipment, the meteor fell straight to the ground. The violent shaking was like an earthquake, radiating 100 miles away. In a small town more than 10 miles away, the first time they noticed the meteors that landed outside the city, and many good deeds drove their vehicles to search for treasures outside the town. This year, meteors are extremely valuable, and you can get rich on the spot if you pick one. Many people came outside the town with the intention of winning the lottery. But when they arrived at the scene of the incident, they found only a lone hammer in the crater. Ha! What the hell is this? Many people curiously came to the side of the hammer. But no matter how they acted, they couldn't pick up the hammer, even if they pulled it with a car. The news spread throughout the town at once, attracting more good deeds. Even local authorities were quick to learn the news. Among them are agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. At the same time, on the wilderness road leading to the town, a car accidentally hit a person. A man and two women got out of the car and looked at the corpses on the ground in panic. One of the beautiful women exclaimed, "It's over, Professor, we've hit someone." "Woohoo, Jane, what should we do? I haven't been deceived by scumbags yet." "Be quiet, Daisy, not dead yet." The woman named Jane rolled her eyes, feeling a little helpless. This classmate and friend of myself is really in love brain. But this is not the time to dwell on this. Looking at the person who was hit by them, she did not have any hesitation and quickly said, "Professor, let's take him to the hospital quickly." "Good." Professor Eric on the side nodded. Soon, CBFB, they carefully helped the man to the car. The car turned around and headed for the town. At the same time, the base of the hand meeting. Lin Fan ended his conversation with Banner and came here alone to meet Apocalypse and Mrs. Gao. "Sir, I have summoned Alexandra and the others." Mrs. Gao reported respectfully to Lin Fan. Lin Fan's strength has been with her own eyes. Even the black sky of the whole card of the Han Union, the dimensional evil god known as the Beast God, could not withstand Lin Fan's move. Read violent novels, just go to Feilu Fiction Network. It was definitely their lifelong honor to become Lin Fan's subordinate. As soon as she summoned Alexandra and the others. But she did not clarify the specific situation, only said that the keel remains had been opened. At that time, Mr. Apocalypse may need to deter. "Well, I see." At the top position, Lin Fan nodded indifferently. He looked down at Mrs. Gao and said, "You have done a very good job. As long as you do things for me honestly, I have always been a person who does not hesitate to reward my subordinates." Saying that, Lin Fan turned to look at the Apocalypse. Without Lin Fan's nonsense, Tianchi walked out directly and stood in front of Mrs. Gao. "You pick one." The weather said with a big wave of his hand, and a little inspiration emerged. Then a projection was suspended in mid-air. And what is displayed on it is the many superpowers possessed by the Apocalypse, various types. This. Seeing this scene, Mrs. Gao was stunned. Are these so-called superpowers? But that's outrageous. It's just that one of Lin Fan's subordinates actually has so many superpowers, and can even give them to others out of thin air. Is this sure that a human ability to master? The shock in Mrs. Gao's heart, needless to say. At this time, looking at those superpowers, she suddenly became excited when she thought that she could choose one of them. Thank you, my lord. Mrs. Gao hurriedly thanked Lin Fan. Immediately looking at those superpowers, she was dazzled, and she didn't know how to choose. It's really that every superpower is a very powerful type. If she really had to choose, she didn't know which one to choose. And he was more and more shocked by Lin Fan's strength. As strong as the apocalypse, he was willing to become Lin Fan's subordinate, which was enough to see how terrifying Lin Fan's strength was. She made up her mind in her heart that she would hug her thighs no matter how she would in the future. After some choice, Mrs. Gao quickly made a decision. Mr. Apocalypse, I want this telepathy. Mrs. Gao said respectfully to the Apocalypse. Apocalypse nodded and waved his hand to shoot out a cloud of black chi. The black chi went straight into Mrs. Gao's body. It's just that it doesn't take long to work hard, and as the black chi merges into the body, Mrs. Gao's body is also being transformed. Unexpectedly. It turned out to be true? Sensing the changes in her body, Mrs. Gao's face showed ecstasy. Her excitement was difficult to calm down for a long time. It turned out that the Apocalypse could really give her superpowers. Doesn't that mean that as long as she is faithful to Lin Fan, she will almost get more superpowers in the future? This is much stronger than him bitterly looking for the keel and cultivating by himself. And most importantly, holding Lin Fan's thigh, they would no longer worry about Kunlun's retaliation in the future. That group of old dragons would definitely not be Lord Lin Fan's opponent. Thinking so in her heart, Mrs. Gao looked at Lin Fan more and more respectfully. Villain, thank you for the superpowers. Lin Fan nodded indifferently and was non-committal. It's just a superpower. As long as Mrs. Gao does things well, if she develops an elixir in the future, it will not be impossible to give it to the other party. Waving his hand for Mrs. Gao to leave first, he looked at the Apocalypse and said, The hand association will be managed by you on my behalf. Yes, master. Apocalypse nodded respectfully. And Lin Fan also took care of himself and continued. When you officially take over the hand association, I need you to help me do two things. One is to investigate the news about the 10 Commandments gang. The second is to try to contact the Brotherhood, and if I can, I hope to meet with their leader. Since he accepted the hand association, then Lin Fan did not intend to let it go. This organization is somewhat useful. At the very least, the intelligence network of the hand association is very strong, and can help him do some errand work, such as investigating the news of the 10 Commandments gang. The 10 rings are said to be artifacts, but it is unknown how. Lin Fan did not have the luxury of hoping how strong he could be. But since you have accepted the hand association, you always have to find something for the other party to do. Beyond that, there's the Brotherhood. Its leader, Eric, Magneto, is also a very powerful mutant, and it is naturally excellent if he can subdue him. Or simply trigger the system mechanism to get the system reward. And Lin Fan was very curious whether Magneto had a second daughter. For example, Wanda and Quicksilver are two siblings. Lin Fan knew very well that the future Crimson Witch's strength was extraordinary, and the chaos magic could be called heaven-destroying. If you can earn it in advance, the benefits are self-evident. Master, rest assured, Apocalypse will do its best. Apocalypse replied respectfully. Soon Lin Fan left directly. Everything that should be commanded has been ordered, and then he will take a good rest. It just so happens that you can sort out the loot you get inside the remains of an underground keel. Lin Fan waved his hand to summon the spirit body of the black sky, and then directly devoured it, secretly running the heaven-devouring demon skill. At the same time, the ability to detain the spirit dispatch will be activated to speed up this refining process. Two different abilities complement each other at this moment. In a short time, Lin Fan completely refined it and used it to strengthen his soul. Now Lin Fan has a silver super bloodline, and his physique is terrifying. But the soul aspect was Lin Fan's weakness. However, fortunately, he has the ability to detain the spirit general. As long as he continues to refine the spirit body, his soul can also reach the realm of the god. The only pity is that the black sky is just a pseudo-god, and the effect after refining is not much. Unless you can find a soul-type treasure equivalent to a dragon bone. Wait. If I'm not mistaken, Wakanda seems to have a panther god. Suddenly, Lin Fan's heart moved, and he thought of Wakanda. The most suitable should have been the soul gem. But Lin Fan couldn't cross the void, and the conditions for obtaining soul gems were also harsh, and he didn't have such great ambitions now. So he thought that he would have the opportunity to go to Wakanda to find out. At this moment, the Red Queen suddenly said playfully, Episode 79. State of Mexico, on the town. Lin Fan passed through any gate and came directly to this town, where he saw the psychopath in the mouth of the Red Queen. Looking at Sol on the doctor's bed, he shook his head secretly. This Thor is really not ordinary brainless. Thor has always been simple-minded and well-developed. Even after a lot of experience, it hasn't changed. At this time, after losing his divine power, not only did he not have any convergence, but he was still clamoring for his identity as the god of Thor. But in the eyes of others, he is completely a paranoiac. That is, the so-called neuropathy. Quick! Increase the dose. Seeing that he couldn't control Sol, the doctor ordered in a deep voice. The nurse on the side immediately took out the sedative. Ignoring Jane Foster's obstruction, the nurse went down directly with a needle, and Sultan's whole body fell. But with his strong physique, he insisted on not passing out. Phew! Everyone breathed a sigh of relief when they saw this. The person in front of him not only has a brain problem, but also has a lot of key strength, and 3 or 5 people can't hold him down. If it weren't for the sedative, they really couldn't control each other. Doctor, he's going to be fine, is he? Jane Foster on the side asked worriedly. She was afraid that because of them, Thor would be foolish, then they would have to make trouble. Don't worry, miss. The doctor wiped a cold sweat and said seriously. We have seen many such patients. As long as they are well cared for, it is not without hope of returning to normal. Well, that's good. Jane Foster breathed a sigh of relief. Soon the doctor left with the nurse, leaving Jane Foster in the ward. You? How are you feeling? Jane Foster asked with concern. But Sol was unmoved. He looked at the ceiling blankly, thinking back to his experience of miserable exile, and his whole person fell into despair. Thinking that he was the god of thunder, Sol, he couldn't even beat a few ordinary people. Even he was easily subdued by the poison of the other party. Only then did he finally realize that he was not only exiled, but even completely deprived of his divine power. His father had clearly given up on him. Nope. Father. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Thor roared in his heart, but his mood sank to the bottom. Jane Foster on the side watched silently. From Thor's eyes, she seemed to feel some kind of despair, and her heart couldn't help but feel some kind of throbbing. This made her look at Thor's side face, and she was slightly distracted. Knock, knock. But at this moment, there was an unhurried knock on the door. Jane Foster was immediately taken aback. She looked around weakly and saw that Thor hadn't noticed her small movements, and she was relieved. Getting up and coming to the door, Jane Foster opened the door. Greeted by an Asian youth. Hello, sir, who are you looking for? Jane Foster asked politely. Him. Lin Fan said concisely and pointed to Sol lying on the hospital bed. Saying that, he walked directly around Jane Foster and walked in. Hey, sir, you wait. Jane Foster hurriedly caught up. Standing next to Lin Fan, she was curious in her heart, and quickly said a little apologetically. I'm sorry, sir, we didn't mean to hurt your friend, this is actually just an accident, I hope you forgive our mistakes, we are willing to bear all the compensation. Miss Jane Foster, you misunderstood. Glancing at Sol, Lin Fan turned his head to look at Jane Foster and said indifferently. I'm not Thor's friend. Hey. After hearing this, Jane Foster was suddenly dumbfounded. She looked at Lin Fan a little confused. It is clear that you said that you came for him, and you also called out people's names, and then said that what is not his friend? She could understand everything Lin Fan said, but she was directly confused when she connected it. So do you two know each other or not? You? Who are you? At this moment, Sol on the hospital bed suddenly spoke. At this point, he spoke very hard. But looking at Lin Fan in front of him, his whole eyes widened, and his body trembled with excitement. He struggled to get it done, but couldn't do anything about it. Sir, don't worry, this is not good for your health. Seeing Thor's body trembling, Jane Foster suddenly panicked. She inexplicably felt uneasy at this time. Lin Fan, who spoke and acted strangely, and Sol, who reacted fiercely, these two should not be enemies, right? Didn't she lure wolves into the house? Even she herself is afraid that she will be killed and silenced. Lin Fan didn't know Jane Foster's conjecture. My name is Lin Fan, and I'm from Carmitage. He looked down at Thor condescendingly and said indifferently. You may have heard the name of this place, of course, it doesn't matter if you haven't heard it, you can think of it as the military headquarters of Asgard. Carmitage? Hearing the name, Jane Foster was shocked. Does the United States have such an official organization? And I don't know why, the name Carmitage sounds like something out of a wizarding novel. However, for Lin Fan, she became more and more curious. Who is this person divine? At the same time, Thor was also very puzzled. Because he had never heard of Karma-Taj either. But judging from Lin Fan's performance, this is likely to be a very strong force in the atrium. How else to compare with their military headquarters in Asgard? Of course, it is also possible that Lin Fan is exaggerating. But no matter what, since Lin Fan knew him and knew Asgard, there must be a lot of origin. At this time, he had lost his divine power. How should he face Lin Fan? What if Lin Fan wanted to disadvantage him? Could it be that my thunder god Thor has just been exiled to Earth and is about to die? After some crankiness, Sultan became even more desperate. His father was so cruel to him. It is clear that he did nothing wrong. Why should he be exiled, and even the divine power was completely deprived? Isn't this forcing him to die? Mr. Thor, I think you must have misunderstood something. Seeing Thor's thoughts, Lin Fan didn't even have the desire to complain. This guy really doesn't have any brains. Too lazy to talk nonsense, he simply went straight to the topic and said, I came to you this time because your father, the Odin God King, has already contacted us in advance. What? Hearing this, Sultan exclaimed. He looked at Lin Fan with a shocked face. His own father? How is this possible? Not to mention how an Atrium man came into contact with his father, Odin. The point is that he was not exiled to the Atrium? Then why did his father still say hello to the Atrium? It doesn't make any sense. Unless Lin Fan was simply deceiving him and had bad intentions. Who the hell are you? Thor glared at Lin Fan and questioned. Jane Foster on the side also subconsciously stayed away from Lin Fan, inexplicably feeling that Lin Fan was very strange. What God King, what Odin, do you think it is a myth and legend? Could it be Thor or Thor in a hospital bed? What an international joke. At this time, when she looked at Lin Fan again, she only thought that Lin Fan, like Sol, was a patient from a certain mental hospital. If it weren't for Lin Fan's illness, she would have called the doctor a long time ago. How? You don't believe it? Seeing Sol's thoughts, Lin Fan was non-committal. He didn't waste his tongue. Without hesitation, he directly waved his hand to summon the cold ice treasure box, and said indifferently. You should know this thing, right? Ice treasure box? Thor exclaimed, and the whole person was shocked beyond words. He recognized at a glance that it was the ice treasure box. But if he remembered correctly, the ice treasure box should be in the palace treasury at this time, and it was the trophy of his father. Could it be that this was a fake that Lin Fan had imitated in order to deceive him? But the cold ice treasure box exuded a terrifying cold aura at this time. Jane Foster may not feel it, but as a former god of Thor, he only feels that his soul is frozen. This is also enough to prove that what Lin Fan has in his hand is indeed a cold ice treasure box. Other words. What Lin Fan said is true. This. How is this possible? How could father send the ice treasure box to an Atrium person? For a while, Thor was confused, feeling that his brain was not enough. So what the hell is all this about? At the same time, Jane Foster on the side widened his eyes. If she was not mistaken, Lin Fan should have taken out the item out of thin air. Could it be that she was still a magician? Read violent novels, just go to Feilu Fiction Network. But where can Lin Fan hide such a big thing? You can't hide in that kind of place, right? That's right. Lin Fan nodded indifferently and shrugged his shoulders. I didn't expect that your father would be willing to pay such a big price for you and give me such a thing as the ice treasure box. Although I don't want to admit it, your father did give a price that I can't refuse. So for the rest of the time, you have to listen to me. Saying that, Lin Fan waved his hand and put away the ice treasure box. Nor did he care about Thor's reaction, he said in an unquestionable tone. I will help you pass the test and recover your divine power until you return to Asgard. You have no right to refuse. Sultan, who was a little confused at first, was shocked. What did he hear Lin Fan say? Pass the test? Regain divine power? Return to Asgard? Wasn't he exiled, let alone abandoned, and had a chance to return home? And what about the deal that Lin Fan said? Sol's already few brain cells, facing so many problems at the moment, suddenly felt like he was going to grow a brain. Of course, this is just his delusion. Phew. Call. Taking a deep breath to calm his mood, Thor asked. This gentleman, what the hell is going on? And what are the deals you are talking about? Literally. Lin Fan glanced at Jane Foster, who was unconscious, and explained indifferently. As a future heir to the throne, your performance is very unqualified, arrogant, stupid, reckless, and belligerent. Speaking of Sol's shortcomings, Lin Fan had no scruples. He pointed out Sol's problem directly. And every time he said an adjective, Thor's face darkened, and finally it was even more ugly to drip water. Ask for flowers. Being so counted down by an outsider, he wanted to refute but had nothing to say. Because this is indeed the problem with him. To say that it sounds good is informal, to say it is ugly. Lin Fan was right. Ha! The corners of Lin Fan's mouth raised slightly, but he was silent on the surface. I didn't expect this guy to be quite tolerable. It seems that although Thor has a bunch of problems, it is not without room for transformation, otherwise he may really have to return it. Without running on Saul again, he finally concluded as if he were saying. So your father sent you to Earth, it was actually an experience. Experience? Thor whispered the word. Although he was not sure whether this matter was true or not, he could probably understand that he was really not abandoned by his father. Otherwise, his father would not need to give the ice treasure box to the atrium people in front of him. That's why his father paid such a big price. In fact, to sharpen him? So my father actually loves me? Sultan saw a glimmer of hope again. Regardless of Lin Fan's attitude, he immediately asked expectantly. Then can you help me get my divine power back? Can't. Lin Fan shook his head. Can't? Why? No, why? Lin Fan looked indifferent, and even said with a little disgust. This is your father's test for you, of course I can help you, but I won't. I don't want multiple brainless reckless men on Earth. You. Sultan was furious. Lin Fan's words were brilliant, even extremely humiliating, but he was speechless. Not to mention that Lin Fan could have a fair deal with his father. The point is that he does have a lot of problems. Letting a dangerous guy appear on Earth is like putting a frost giant into Asgard, and I believe that everyone knows how to choose. Facing Lin Fan at this time, Thor knew that he had no room for resistance. Unless he didn't want to go through the test to find his divine power. Divine power? Test? God King Odin? At the same time, the Jane Foster people on the side were stupid. Originally, he thought that Lin Fan was also paranoid. But seeing that Lin Fan and Soul said that they had noses and eyes, could it be that all this was true? Or that the acting skills of these two are already comparable to the Oscar? Jane Foster was devastated at this time. It's crazy to think that she would believe what two paranoids said. Two gentlemen, Jane Foster calmed down and tried to interrupt Lin Fan and Soul's performance. She wanted to find a doctor to help control the two men. Otherwise, let them continue like this. What if they really think they are gods and then become supermen? This is the 18th floor, don't make any more trouble. Someone is coming. But without waiting for Jane Foster to speak, Lin Fan looked out the door. Then he waved his hand at Thor and said, This is not the place to talk, let's leave first. You don't want to be treated as a neuropathy by humans, do you? Thor, who heard this, his face darkened. The dignified Thor was subdued by ordinary people, and even treated as a neurotic, which is definitely a shame for his life. If they let Sif know, they would probably be laughed at for the rest of their lives. Go! Let's get out of here! Thor immediately struggled to get started. Wait, too. Seeing this, Jane Foster hurriedly stepped forward to stop it. What she didn't want to see happened anyway. In case Lin Fan and Soul got into trouble, no matter who had an accident, it was not what she wanted to see. But before she could say anything more, Lin Fan's mind moved, and he directly summoned any door, leading directly to the base of the Hand Club's Hell Kitchen. This scene suddenly stunned Thor on the hospital bed, and Jane Foster on the side. The two looked at the arbitrary door with wide eyes and said in disbelief. This is? Could it be that this was the teleportation technique that Lin Fan had mastered? You must know that even in Asgard, his queen mother who mastered witchcraft could not easily use spells such as teleportation. So they usually go far away with the help of the Rainbow Bridge. But Lin Fan summoned the portal casually, and the gap was not a star and a half. Could it be that Lin Fan was really a powerhouse in the atrium? At this time, looking at Lin Fan, Soul was shocked, and he was glad that he did not offend Lin Fan. Otherwise, there will definitely be no good fruit from him to eat. Jane Foster on the side was even more stupid, feeling that he had encountered a hallucination. She actually saw Lin Fan conjure a door out of thin air? There's no place to hide something that big, right? So how exactly did Lin Fan do it? Let's go! Lin Fan waved his hand and lifted the sedative effect of Soul's expression. Then he walked directly into any door. Thor forced down the shock in his heart, rolled over directly and got out of bed, and then walked into it. He has had enough of this killing place, and the group of white-clothed demons. Now he just wants freedom. Hey! Jane Foster looked at the backs of the two, wanting to say something but unable to say anything. At this moment, she felt that her worldview had collapsed. Episode 80. At the same time, dozens of miles away from the town. Just as Lin Fan left with Thor, people from S.H.I.E.L.D. came here, and the person who led the team was none other than Coulson. This bald agent should be regarded as the mainstay of S.H.I.E.L.D. The mysterious event of the meteorite landing on Earth and turning into a hammer was reported to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters by local agents at the first time. With years of experience, Nick Fury can see at a glance that there must be something strange in this. That hammer is most likely from some alien civilization, similar to the space cube you once got. If you can get this hammer, S.H.I.E.L.D. can study it, and maybe you can get a huge harvest. So Coulson came and directly blocked the square kilometer. Even S.H.I.E.L.D. has set up temporary camps here. Because Mjolnir could not be picked up, they had to study it on the spot, trying to find a way to take Mjolnir away. But alas, it backfired. No matter how they researched, the result was nothing, and they couldn't even shake Mjolnir in the slightest. Director, I think this hammer is very strange, can it be that kind of thing? Inside the office, Coulson reported to Anai Kufung. What he said was the space cube. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s research on space magic has also been the same for decades, but the results have yielded very little. After coming into contact with Mjolnir, he always felt that the two were very similar. Keep researching. On the other side of the communication, Nick Fury was non-committal. There was a strange twinkle in his eyes. When he learned about the existence of Mjolnir, he also thought of the space Rubik's Cube, so he sent Coulson out as soon as possible. Now that Mjolnir has fallen into their hands, the next step is to study it slowly. Anyway, the last thing they are bad at now is time. Yes, Chief. Coulson took the lead and quickly cut off communications. Research on Mjolnir continues. Meanwhile, Hell's Kitchen. Hand in Hand 260 will be inside the base. Through any door, Lin Fan came here with Soul, followed by a Jane Foster. For this hilarious follower, Lin Fan did not refuse. The group of three went directly to the office on the top floor. At this time, the Apocalypse was here, and after seeing Lin Fan, he quickly stood up and respectfully said, "Master, you are here." Lin Fan nodded and said casually, "You go down first, occupy your office, and I'll sit with these two guests for a while." The master said and smiled, "Master, please." Apocalypse was sincerely terrified, and quickly exited the room respectfully. Soon, only Lin Fan and the three were left in the room. And Thor looked at the leaving Apocalypse, and his heart was shocked beyond belief, and he was even more curious about Lin Fan's identity. Because from the Apocalypse, he felt a threatening aura of death. This is enough to prove that the Apocalypse has the power to threaten him. But such a strong man, to actually call Lin Fan the master, it is simply terrifying. Wouldn't that mean that Lin Fan's strength was even more terrifying? So who is Lin Fan? If his father could trade fairly, and even take the initiative to give the Cold Ice treasure box, could it be that Lin Fan was the ruler of the Atrium? Such a top power may really help him pass the test. I just don't know if the other party is willing to help him. Thinking so in his heart, Soul looked at Lin Fan expectantly, and asked worriedly, "This gentleman, can you tell me what the hell is going on?" At the same time, Jane Foster also looked at Lin Fan curiously. She did not dare to make any sound at this time. If it weren't for the curiosity in her heart, she wouldn't even dare to follow. After all, what she heard and saw was really strange. A suspected alien soul. Lin Fan, a suspected superpower. Even just now, someone called Lin Fan the master, which was simply outrageous. What age are they still engaged in master-servant? Lin Fan shouldn't be some bad person, right? Is magic really in this world? And Lin Fan and Soul, shouldn't they really be characters in myths and legends? It's just incredible. Please sit down. Lin Fan didn't explain, just beckoned the two to sit down. Saul and Jane Foster could only be. Soon the group of three people took their seats, and Lin Fan didn't talk nonsense, and said directly. Simply put, it's a fair deal. Your father exiled you to Earth, let me take care of you more, lest you cause great trouble and die on Earth. Lin Fan said it very bluntly, and he was also very heartfelt. Sultan was a little stunned. How is it possible? Thor exclaimed and stood up, subconsciously wanting to refute. But then he sat back in his place. Although he didn't want to admit it, thinking of his recent experience, he was indeed very likely to burp. After all, now he has lost his divine power and hammer. Even ordinary people can easily subdue him. In this way, what qualifications does he have to shout that he is Thor, the god of thunder? You don't have to be sad either. Seeing Soul's helplessness, Lin Fan said indifferently. As long as you don't cause trouble, no one will take the initiative to attack you. The Earth has always advocated peace, of course, exceptions are not excluded. And no reverence, this is what your father wants you to understand. Lin Fan didn't have the idea of playing with Soul. Do you really think it's easy to change a person? Like the so-called growth in the original plot, it is just a movie need. How can it be so easy in reality? Let him waste time playing with soul to cultivate, that is absolutely impossible. Not even if Odin adds money. Ah. Muttering what Lin Fan said, Soul thought thoughtfully. But he still doesn't understand something. What did the that Lin Fan said in his mouth have to do with him being exiled and passing the test? Facing a strong man like Lin Fan, of course he knew that he was afraid. After all, he is not an iron-headed baby who catches anyone for dry water. It is impossible to say that if he knows all, he will be able to pass the test and find his divine power, right? But what does this have to do with me passing the test? Thor directly asked the doubts in his heart, and said with a bitter face. I just provoked my father and was exiled, and you told me that this was a test. What does my father want me to do? At this point, Thor was broken and couldn't scratch his head at all. He still feels that he is not wrong. Jotunheim was originally an enemy of Asgard. Is it still wrong to deal with the enemy? He felt that it was completely his father one who made a fuss. It seems that you still don't understand, no wonder. Lin Fan shook his head, not bothering to talk nonsense with Soul anymore. He looked at Jane Foster on the side and said, Miss Jane Foster, if you can, why don't you accompany this Mr. Soul? I am not interested in participating in this kind of game. Saying that, Lin Fan got up and left directly and came to the next room. At this time, the 5 leaders of the Hand Association gathered. Under the summoning of Mrs. Gao, Alexandra and others came to New York in a tumultuous manner. They thought they could get an endless kill. As a result, who knew that as soon as people arrived in the kitchen of hell, they were controlled by the apocalypse and became the slaves of Lin Fan's slaves. They resisted at first, but then Maka warned. Just because the apocalypse drew them a pie. As long as they do things well, they can be given superpowers, and Mrs. Gao also appeared on the side. There was nothing to do, and several people who did not have a second option quickly surrendered. The entire Hand Union officially fell into Lin Fan's hands. Seeing Lin Fan's arrival, the 5 people of Mrs. Gao, who had been summoned by the apocalypse in advance, immediately saluted respectfully. I'll wait to see the master. Whom? Lin Fan nodded indifferently and said casually. Let's all get up. Saying that, Lin Fan sat there by himself. Glancing at Mrs. Gao and the others, he said indifferently. I am not very demanding. As long as I do things faithfully for me, merit will be rewarded. I'm bound to do my best for the master. Mrs. Gao and the others were sincerely afraid. Read violent novels, just go to Feilu Fiction Network. Lin Fan was non-committal about this, turned to look at the apocalypse, and said in a deep voice. Is there any news from the 10 Commandments gang I want you to investigate? There are some eyebrows. Apocalypse quickly took the initiative to explain. It turned out that after the investigation of the Hand Association, it was found that the 10 Rings gang was actually just a cover-up, and there was a real big boss behind it. But for this person, the Hand Association did not find much information at all. Of course, this is also related to the short time. Within a few days, the Hand Association only found out that there was someone behind the 10 Commandments gang. This person is unknown and his identity is mysterious, but he is suspected to be from Huaxia. Outsiders call him Khan Venerable. Khan? Lin Fan became interested when he heard this, and said with great interest. This is true, I didn't expect it. The 10 rings turned out to be the 10 rings? Originally, the 10 Commandments and the 10 rings were very similar. But because there was no conclusive evidence, Lin Fan did not dare to guarantee that there must be some connection between the two. Now that the facts are in front of us, the next thing to do is simple. Well done you guys. Lin Fan rarely praised, but then ordered. There is no need to investigate the 10 Commandments gang. From now on, I want you to help me monitor someone. His name is Dr. Petty. At the same time, in the next room. In the face of Lin Fan's request, Jane Foster was a little overwhelmed, but quickly stabilized his emotions. She first expressed her apologies to Thor for the crash. Thor grinned that it didn't matter. But in order to pass the so-called test, he took the initiative to ask Jane Foster, and the two began to talk. Jane Foster directly asked the biggest doubt in his heart. So Thor, are you really Thor? Of course. Thor said with a smug look. Of course I am the god of Thor. If it weren't for the lack of divine power, I would still be able to take you to the sky and fly around. Flying sky? Hearing this, Jane Foster suddenly looked longing. But she was even more shocked by Thor's identity. If Thor is really Thor, isn't Norse mythology real? In other words, Thor's father is the god King Odin. She actually saw a god? But if Thor is a god, then who is Lin Fan, who can have a fair dialogue with the god King Odin? There is no such figure as Lin Fan in Norse mythology? Could it be the native gods of the earth? What's wrong? Jane, are you alright? At this moment, Thor patted Jane Foster and asked Zero. "Ah, I'm okay." Jane Foster looked back and smiled awkwardly. She didn't ask Thor about Lin Fan, because even Thor didn't know. Moreover, inquiring into people's privacy is very offensive to any way of looking at it. Even if she was very curious in her heart. "Can you tell me about you? If I can, maybe I can help you analyze it." Thinking of Lin Fan's request, Jane Foster took the initiative to ask. Of course, she herself is also very curious. Although she only heard a few words, everything about Soul was like a curious baby. In other words, is there any difference between the lives of Protoss and humans? Thor shouldn't be in control of the weather every day, right? So every time it rains and thunders, can she see Thor in the sky? Thank you so much. Thor was ecstatic, and quickly explained the cause and the plan, including him leading people into Jotunheim. But he angered Odin, leading to his own exile and even the stripping of his powers and hammer. When he talked about it, Thor seemed very resentful. He still doesn't feel like he's having a problem. At the same time, after hearing Thor's story, the Jane Foster people on the side were stupid. I'm silly, really. I shouldn't have illusions. Jane Foster smiled bitterly, helplessly. She didn't expect that the imaginary Protoss was not tall, and even the same as humans. Thor is known as Thor, but he is simply a child who has not grown up. Are you sure it's right to provoke Jotunheim? Although it is not clear what happened, from Thor's account, she probably speculated about the cause of the matter. In general, it is a group of people who beat pig brains into dog brains for profit. Jotunheim and Asgard were enemies. But after so many years, the two races are at peace with each other, and they dare not provoke each other easily. But this state of peace is fragile and could easily be broken. Neither side wants the war to break out again. But Soul is good, but he took the initiative to find trouble with others, and also praised it for the glory of Asgard. She can only say that she deserves it. No wonder Thor was exiled by his father. This is completely Thor at his own devices, okay. No wonder Lin Fan couldn't look at Soul and didn't bother to deal with him, but it was her too. This is still Lin Fan's face in the face of the father and king who personally came to the door. Jane Foster couldn't imagine it. If Odin really gives up Thor, then with Thor's character, I am afraid that there will be a big mess in a few days. At that time, if it really angered Lin Fan, the consequences would be absolutely unimaginable. No one wants a reckless neighbor Ho-Oh's own back garden. Thor, your father is too good for you. After a long silence, Jane Foster said this. She really didn't know what to say. She did not have any sympathy for Thor's plight at all, but felt that Soul deserved it. At this time, she finally understood what all this was all about. Simply put, it's a test. First, as Lin Fan said before, Thor was exiled to Earth, even losing his divine powers, in order to experience life as an ordinary person. As long as you can understand what you have done wrong with 5.8, you may be able to pass the test. For this, Thor's father paid a lot of price. My father was nice to me? Hearing what Jane Foster said, Thor gambled and said, if he is good to me, why did he exile me inexplicably? Obviously I didn't do anything wrong. Do you really think so? Jane Foster's pretty face sank slightly, feeling that Thor was really unreasonable. Are the so-called Protoss so brainless? It is clear that Thor has lived for thousands of years, and she almost cried with envy when she heard it, but she didn't expect the other party to be so stupid. How? What's wrong? Thor asked a little weakly. Jane Foster shook her head in disappointment. Although this matter had nothing to do with her, compared her heart to her heart, she really felt that Thor was hopeless. With such a son on the stall, Odin is probably also very tired, right? You're doing it wrong, you're so wrong. Taking a deep breath, Jane Foster said bluntly. As the Prince of Asgard, you rashly provoke enemies and start a war, which is irresponsible to the whole of Asgard. As Odin's son, you are acting recklessly in defiance of your father's teachings. Because of your personal actions, the whole of Asgard is threatened by war, and your father has to wipe your ass. Now your father has paid a huge price to cooperate with Mr. Lin for you. As a result, you don't know how to be grateful, but you feel like a victim. I can only say that you are to blame for all this. Jane Foster finished speaking, feeling that his resentment had completely disappeared. There are some things she really doesn't say and doesn't feel happy. For Thor, the so-called god, she really couldn't help but complain, it was really this guy who was too unreasonable. Hearing this, Soul's whole person was directly stunned in place. It turns out that the clown is myself?